Are you looking for the key that unlocks the door to a professional visual identity? Well, I think the key isn't what you think it is, but it is what makes professional visual identity possible. So what's up? My name's Ty and I'm an identity designer, and this is phase one of designing a visual identity. If you want to design a professional identity for your brand, the key is research. Lots and lots of research. So in this video, I'm going to show you the process I went through for this brand and explain my workflow to help me create a beautiful identity. This is Surmise. They're like a skincare beauty company that sources ingredients from single source, natural, pure sources from nature. So think of beef tallow or essential oils, that type of thing. That's the idea behind Surmise. Now, in this series, I'm going to give you a realistic look into the actual creation of a visual identity system. You're going to see all of the scaffolding and the rebar and the dirt that goes into the foundations of a visual identity. And that's what this video is. It's the research phase. It's collecting information and organizing everything so that it makes sense in the future. Now, my goal is to be as open and transparent as possible about this project and share everything. So with that being said, here's the process I went through for doing research on this brand. Now, research is the information gathering phase. So what I'm trying to do is gather as much information as possible. We're not making any decisions at this point. It's purely gathering information. Strategy is when we'll start to make decisions, but right now it's just research. But before any of this research can actually happen, a business has to become my client first. So let me share with you that process because it is important. And by the way, this is a mouse. I was gifted this recently. This is not a vape pen. This is a mouse. So like this is left click here. It's really funky. I'm testing it out, but that's besides the point. The first thing that happens is someone comes to my website and fills out this form. This form might be different by the time you're watching this, but regardless, there's a form, it gets filled out, and then it gets sent to me. Then I send them a link to schedule a discovery call with me where I go deeper into figuring out what it is that they actually need, and we look to see if we're going to work well together. If they are a good fit and I like the project, then I'll send over the contract and an invoice for a 50% deposit. Once the contract has been signed and the deposit has been paid, I create a new project in my project management software. Now, going back to the discovery call, we talked about their needs, and by the end of the call, I'm hoping to have two things written on this document. I'm looking for a success statement, which basically tells me what will make this project actually successful to the client, and then a list of brand nouns. So I'm looking for 15 to 20 nouns, observable real nouns that you can look at with your eyes, a list of 15 to 20 of these nouns that we can refine and chop down a little bit later. Now, the concept of brand nouns came from this book, Logos That Last by Alan Peters. This is essentially a list of approved nouns that I can use to visualize the brand. This way I don't get trapped with like tangents that they don't even like conceptually. We get some good concepts that we can agree on, and then I can work from there. So pretty important. Now, it's still too early to create mood boards or collect images or anything like that. I'm still in the information gathering stage. And so since this is a spec project and Surmise isn't a real brand that I can talk to, I'm just going to use AI. I'll have it generate answers to these questions, and I will take them at face value. I understand the problems with AI. I know it's not reliable or consistent or realistic, and it's kind of dumb, but this is an example project, and so for this purpose, I'm just going to roll with it, and I'm choosing not to worry about it. Now, it depends how deep I want to go into the research. For this project, I want to be more thorough in the research phase to really hit at the heart of who they are and where they want to go. So I ran an interview with the creative director at Surmise. An issue with AI is it likes to jump right into the strategy, and it's way too quick. And so I just completely ignore all of its suggestions for whatever strategy we should do. And I just asked it a bunch of questions to try and get a deeper understanding of who Surmise is, what they stand for, who's their audience, all those things. This is the list of questions that I asked it. And I basically held an interview with it. And then I took the entire transcript of the interview and I copied it into my project management software. So this is the interview that I did here. I reread the whole interview and I highlighted specific things that stood out to me. So ingredient transparency. There's this idea of transparency and ethics. There's a couple of things, like there's a gap in the market. Many high-end beauty brands rely on synthetic ingredients or abstract concepts, which means that when I go to design, I want to stay away from overly abstract concepts and maybe be a little bit more literal. This phrase also stood out to me, is natural wisdom. Now, this isn't brand identity, it's visual identity. Brand identity is visuals plus personality, like how they speak. And since I'm not worrying about the brand and just the visuals, I do want to keep in mind how they're talking so that in my examples I can use their own language. So things like natural wisdom, honor their body, authentic ritual, all these things stand out to me as language that they're using. I asked them to tell me about their target market, so it gave me their primary market right here, and just there's a bunch of stuff here. So I just highlighted the things that stood out to me, and this is a list of words that I can compile to give me an idea of how they want their design to feel. This is why research is so important, because without doing something like this, I'm just kind of going based off of what I think is cool when they might have a complete different idea. So interviewing some of the key figures in a business is incredibly valuable to get an understanding of who they are, who they want to be, and how they want to be perceived. Now, this is a list of some of the extra information that's good for me to know so that I know how to design these systems for them. So it's good for me to understand their marketing, sales, social media, website, magazine or print formats, email or newsletter, their product list, etc., etc. It goes on. There's a bunch of stuff. And all of that I compile into this document. So we have both internal and external information here of like, this is about the brand, this is about the competition. So I break it down into these two categories. And then I also have the forms that they fill out, so the answers to their forms in a questionnaire, and I list the mission, vision, values, and just all of these things I try to understand about them. So this is why research is the key to professional visual identity. It's so that I can design something that I know will speak to them. So I could think that this idea of a conceptual brand could be the coolest thing ever for skincare. And I could spend loads of time creating these really abstract documents and things. But if they want something tactile and real world, well, then I'm in the complete wrong direction. And there's no way for me to know that unless I do some kind of research into the company. Now, there's also an amount of research into their competitors and the market so that we can position them properly in the market so that they don't look the exact same as their competitors. We need to see what is their competitors doing that is working across the industry, and also what is their competitors doing that maybe we should take a completely different direction from. And the only way to understand what everyone is doing and what different things there are to do is through research. So this here is my refined list of brand nouns. I want to get it down to about 5. You can go up to 15. I like 5 because it narrows it down enough to where I can actually work with something here. Now that I feel like I have a very thorough understanding of the company that I'm designing a identity for, I'm finally going to start compiling images into mood boards. Now, the way that I do mood boards, I think, is different to the way that other people do it. This is basically just a compilation of images that I can use to inspire me with the identity. Basically, what I'm doing is I'm going through all of the information I have gathered, and especially through this interview, and I'm pulling images that I think will be useful for me as I design this identity. Now, you can source these images from I mean, pretty much anywhere. It doesn't really matter where you get it from. Google Images, Pinterest, Behance, Instagram, like whatever. What I'm looking for is images or designs, things that might work for this identity. So for example, one of the words that stood out to me in the interview that we had is they wanted to focus on tactile imagery. So what that means is, even though we have a photo like this, which I collected this photo because I liked the harsh shadows coming off the products. But with tactile imagery, that means that we want something like this. So with our product photos, we're going to include it in some type of a scene where there's things around it. So there's texture, there's an environment, there's natural lighting, things like that. A way for it to feel tactile is maybe we have our model holding the product or applying it to their skin. And notice how they're in like a beach environment here. This is in a tactile, like concrete corner with harsh natural lighting going across it. And so it makes for a pretty pleasing image. I'm also looking at shapes and maybe even colors and layouts that could work for this identity. This is to give me inspiration later on in the process. Yeah, I really don't have a lot to say about the mood board. This is just what I've compiled. So there you go. There was a lot of talking, but this was the process that I went through to do research for this brand. I'm not going to pretend like I'm the most thorough researcher out there, but I do think that I have a much better understanding of who the company is and where they want to go now. Here are some more areas of research. I didn't do all of these in this project, and honestly, one of the mistakes that I made during this was I don't think I spent enough time during this research phase. I kept stopping and trying to continue into like designing and drawing the logo, and then I'd kind of get stuck and I'd have to go back because I didn't fully understand the brand. So only once I felt like I actually had a complete understanding of who they are was I able to move forward and break some of those barriers. So spending time on this research phase is super important. I'm calling it the key to good identity design because it's what actually opens the door to the project. If you're doing bad research, you're not getting the key, you're not unlocking the door. If you're doing good research, you open the door and you can walk right in, and everything is prepared for you in the room to create something amazing. I'm hoping this identity will be amazing. We'll see. And I'm going to show all of it. So in the next video, we're moving on to phase 2, which is strategy. And there's some cool concepts that we're going to get into in that phase, which is pretty cool. All right, thank you so much for watching. This was a lot of talking, but I hope it was useful. Here is the next episode, and peace out.